thank you guys you all for coming. My name is Stacey Sutherland. Um, this is the very first of our webinar series. I am the executive director of CCI, and I'm a therapist in private practice here in the U.S. And this is my colleague, Dr. Phil Monroe, who's a psychologist. And then we also have a couple other people on the call today. Geneva, can you wave at us? Geneva
Yes.
also works with us in CCI, and she
Yeah.
is also working on her clinical psychology doctorate degree. So appreciate her for being here. And then you maybe saw Stephanie. Stephanie's our administrative assistant, so she's going to help us with recording and some things like that. I'm excited because there's so many of you coming from really your home countries are all over Africa, Southern Africa. And I think we even have some folks coming outside of Morocco at some time tonight. So we'll see. But this is a series of webinars that we'll be hosting this year. And this is our first one. And a focus, of course, is anxiety and depression and how to navigate that. These webinars are all intended to be informative. We want them to be engaging and practical. And we want you to leave with some new knowledge and some skills that you can put to use right away. So please feel free to unmute yourself when you have questions. We're going to have times where we'll be asking questions to the group, and we want you to feel free to engage and answer. You can also use the chat box. Sometimes we'll ask you specifically to put your answers in the chat box. Just be cautious not to share things that, especially if it's someone else's private information, just be cautious about that, that it's not identifiable, and be careful of your own private information. We want to create a safe space for you and for everyone here. So thank you for coming. And we would love to get your feedback. We will give you some information at the end about how you can contact us. We will also be having a question answer time at the end of the session. So if you feel like you have a question, it's not quite getting answered, you can put that in the chat at any time during the session, and we'll try to get to it. And if at the end we don't, there's an opportunity for you to ask. So.
And we can, if there's a way you can, of course, in Zoom, make your chat private. You could send a question to Stacey or myself privately. You can just go down there to the chat function and click the little send chat to, and then you'll find the individual that you want to send it to in case you don't want to ask it to the whole group. But hopefully it's a place where we can feel comfortable to ask what we need.
And again, so this is going to be very conversational between myself and Dr. Monroe, and then we're going to be inviting you into the conversation, asking questions. So get comfortable, and you are welcome to keep your video on or off, whatever you prefer. We would love to see your faces because it makes it so much more kind of personal for us that who we're talking to and with. But do what makes you feel comfortable. I'm going to change my view to multi-speaker, so you can do
And
that.
I'll say this, it's great to see you all there. I'm looking at the names. It looks like Zambia has really shown up tonight. Great, Zambia, but I see Rwanda and Haiti showing up, so it's so great. If you haven't introduced yourself, feel free to throw that in there so that we all know who we're talking with.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. So let's get started. I want to show you something. So let's see if I can pull this over here. Takes a little doing on my part. Okay, can you see this? How well can
you need to put it up a little. There you go.
Ooh.
Yeah, we can't see your bottle or whatever it is you have. There you go.
I don't know. I'm going to hold some things up. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this. I've got 1, 2, 3 little jars. Look, 3 jars with white candy, and then does anybody know what Skittles are? Any of you guys know what Skittles? So Skittles are sort of an American treat. So there's some Skittles. And these three glasses right here represent the people who aren't currently struggling with mental health issues. So that's the white chips right here. Okay. And I'm going to put those in this nice big jar. Okay. I'm just really trying to figure this out here. So these are the people in the world who are not struggling with things like anxiety and depression and other mental health issues. So you see that? Okay. And then these are the people who are struggling, the 1 in 4. And let me just say, these are the people that we know of who are struggling with mental health issues. So if you kind of imagine, those are the people who report it to someone. They talk to someone like a doctor or a therapist or somebody like that. And I've got to shake this up a little bit so you can see. It might take me just a minute. So I imagine that there's actually a lot more people than we know of because there's such a stigma about mental health issues, right? And so a lot of us don't really feel like we can tell anybody when something's happening. But I want you to imagine if you go to, I'll just reach in here and pull some out. If you go to school, can you see that? If you go to school and there you are with your friends, your teachers, maybe with your colleagues at work, do you notice how once you see it like this, where you see the Skittles, so that's the people who struggle with mental health issues, and the people who don't, kind of makes you realize that you're not alone. There are a lot of people in this world who are struggling with mental health issues. But you know what happens? Your brain tells you you're all alone. It's just you. There must be something wrong with you because you're having these struggles. And one of the things that we would like for you to go away with from this time together is just knowing that you're not alone. And many people in the world at some time or another. So today, you might be one of the little white chocolate chip candies and you might not be struggling with anxiety and depression. But tomorrow, you might be a Skittle. Tomorrow, you might be struggling. So, or sometime you might go into a room of people, and if 1 in 4 people are struggling with mental health issues, then look at all the people in the gallery here on our video call today. If 1 in 4, that means there's a good number of us who could be dealing with something like anxiety and depression right now. So you're not alone, and it's not abnormal. It's part of the human experience.
As I'm thinking about that as well, since this is a conversation here, Stacey,
Mhm.
I think if we actually look at the population of students in high pressure academic programs and students in high pressure academic programs learning in maybe a different language than their own in a different culture and country, we're probably getting a little closer to maybe 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 4 who
Maybe
might
3 out of
be
4.
experiencing it because anxiety sometimes is what presses us on further,
Mhm.
but it also has some impact on us.
That is so true. I'm really curious about what the students on here, what everybody's facing. What are the things that for you really are creating anxiety and stress? What creates stress in your life right now as a student? Can you put some of the answers in the chat, or if somebody would like to wave their hand and share just a little bit, what are some of the unique stressors for students?
Yes, and these don't have to be yours. You don't have to be outing
Right.
yourself. It could be something that you see because you're talking with lots of your peers, colleagues as well.
What do you think? We're going to wait for you to put something in the chat or tell us. So come on. What are some of the things creating stressors for students in the environments, the communities where you live? What do you think?
Um, Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, this is Sally. For me, one thing that really does create a lot of stress in my education is realizing the fact that I don't move at the same pace when it comes to understanding the things that we learn. And especially for me, being a med student, we do clinical rotations at the hospitals, and then most of the times I find myself in situations where I get to realize that my Moroccan colleagues actually
Mhm.
know a lot of things, and that I think it's because a lot of times they are passing information in their own language, which I cannot understand, and so I really do feel bad and stressed a lot,
Mhm.
realizing that we are not moving at the same pace.
Yes.
Yes.
I wonder if others on here maybe feel the same way. If you do, you can raise
Uh,
your hand. Yeah, Abigail?
for me, when I started working here in Morocco, I had one issue I had was the language barrier at work,
Mhm.
because I speak only in English, and now I am in the midst of my colleagues who speak French and then speak Darija, and they can't really communicate in English. And
Mhm.
during our meetings, it's all French, and I come out with nothing at all. And then
Mhm.
I have to learn from these people who have to train everything in French. So I was really
Mm.
stressed out because I did not see what the input, because
Mm.
anytime there is a training, you must have an input and then an output. And
Mm.
I was so stressed about this situation.
Yes. Wow. That is so, look at it, even in the chat box, people are mentioning things like, well, the pressure of possible failure, the mismanagement of funds. So even having to pay for school. Harriet says not being able to find community or friends to connect with at school, being the only foreigner in a class or a group and feeling isolated. Like Sally said, also just like you feel like other people know things that you don't know. Wow. Somebody says unhealthy relationships. There's a lot here, Phil, and a lot of things that are unique to this group of students who are not in their home country. They're learning and functioning in a place where they have to be in maybe a different culture, using a different language than they're used to.
Yeah, that's really true. So I don't know. As we're thinking about anxiety and depression, would it be helpful for us to start talking about trying to understand what it is? I mean, we know what it is, it lives in our bodies, but maybe it'd be helpful for us to talk about it because we want to all be on the same page. That'd be a good move, Stacey, at this
I
point.
think so.
Okay.
Let's talk about what anxiety and depression are, since that's our
Hmm.
focus topic. There's lots of mental
Hmm.
health issues people can have. And right now we've been talking about some of the things that create stress for students, but specifically when we dial in on anxiety and depression, what are we talking about, Phil?
Hmm. So let's let's look at that. First, I want to ask you if you have experienced, maybe it was just a few moments or even a few years of anxiety or depression. What words would you use to try to describe it? Like, it is a feeling of overwhelm. Maybe some would use that. And feel free if you want to put it in the chat, just a word. And again, it doesn't have to be your word. It could be a word that a friend of yours used, right? But you know, what are those words that you might use for it that explain it? And think about this. It's a multifaceted experience. It is sensations in your body. It includes your thinking, and it includes your emotions, right? Yeah, there's more that we could probably say about it, but just start with those things as you're thinking about what were the ways that anxiety and or depression might be something you experience. What would the feelings look like? What would the body sensations feel like? What would the way you lived in that moment feel like? So go ahead and put that on the chat if you want.
And
And I'm going to...
Harriet has a hand raised there,
Oh,
Phil. I don't know if you
great.
can see that or not, Harriet.
Go for it, Harriet. And while you're unmuting, Harriet, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so I experienced anxiety and depression. So I was in med school, and because I wasn't so much aware of how to handle my emotions or even pay attention to what's going on in my body for a long time, depression and anxiety wasn't something that I even had language for. And I felt like as a believer, I just have to pray when I'm anxious, and it's not something that I even have to pay attention to. And so for me, it was after so many years, towards the end, when I was having not just burnout, but it really was depression, and I didn't have language for it at the time. But basically, what I was feeling in my body and in general was just this sense of hopelessness. And whereas it was a time when I felt I should be excited because I'm finally getting to complete my studies, and there was just so much I had to look forward to. But then I just had so much hopelessness, just feeling so unmotivated. And then I was struggling with going to bed. And then even when I would sleep, struggling with getting out of bed, and even just staying motivated with other things that I still had to do with having to finish my studies, like my end of study research. And yeah, so for me mostly it was a feeling of hopelessness and really just no eagerness for the future.
Your comment, Harriet, is so important because we often don't always understand what's happening to us and why we're experiencing this way. And anxiety and depression are really two sides of the same coin. Imagine having a coin. Sometimes it's the top, you know, we say heads, sometimes it's tails. And on the one side, where anxiety shows up, it is a sense of imminent danger. Something bad is about to happen, and I must try to do something to escape it. Whereas the flip side, as Harriet says, on depression, it is something bad is going and has happened or is happening, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm hopeless. It is not just a thought. I'm hopeless in my body. It's hard to get out of bed. It's like I'm running in sand or water. It's like I can't move. So you can have the same sensation. One leads to trying to panic and escape, and the other leads to a sense of there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck. Everybody's anxiety and depression can look very different. So on the anxiety side, it can be racing thoughts. It can be a rapid heartbeat. It can be an intrusive thought that keeps telling me over and over that I've missed something and I better go back and check it. It can be just a sense of foreboding, a sense of feelings where I can't shake it, but something bad is about to happen. Depression can have all sorts of different experiences. Sometimes it's a numbness. I just feel numb. Other times it is a deep pain It can be shame that feels like I cannot do anything right, right? Other times it's a sense of blueness where I just have tears all the time, sadness, sadness. Everybody's can be different. For somebody else, it can be irritation and anger that they feel all the time, or maybe just nothingness. I feel nothing. I eat my favorite food and I feel nothing. I do my favorite activity with my friends and I feel nothing. Nothing. I would rather just go to sleep. So the experience of anxiety and depression is a full-bodied experience, but generally that there is a big danger out there that I'm supposed to try to avoid. And when I'm anxious, it's because I'm trying to think about what I can do to avoid it. And when I'm depressed, there's no hope.
So
Stacey,
I
add to that.
well, I'm noticing what people are putting in the chat is really, really good observations they're making about what they've noticed in other people or what they felt themselves. And it's just kind of mirroring what you're saying. And I mean, this is my question. Like, is all of this a sign that something's wrong with us?
Yeah. And so that's the question that we always have, right? When we're going through something, we immediately start to do one of two things. The first thing we do is we think if we're the Skittle, we're the colored Skittle, we start thinking about whether or not there must be something wrong where I'm standing out. I'm the only one who experiences this way. Because by the way, when we feel anxiety and depression, we generally try to hide it.
Yeah.
First from ourselves and others. And then we start to look for the reasons why. It must be I don't have enough faith. I'm a weak person. It's because I did something wrong in my past. It's because you can come up, fill in the blank,
Like I'm not doing something right now that I should be doing. Whatever.
But rarely do we come up with it's actually a biochemical relational experience that has so many factors that we can't just pin it down to one thing.
Yeah. Stress, I mean, it has an effect on us and our bodies.
It does.
Yeah.
And in the conversation about anxiety and trauma, anxiety and depression, we have to talk about the concept of trauma. Hopefully you all know what trauma is, or PTSD. Trauma is a wound to the heart that takes a long time to heal. It's a time where we are overwhelmed and we cannot seemingly respond to what's going on in our world. It can be anything from an accident to a betrayal, seeing a sudden death, or an assault, an attack on us. And that can also lead us into a chronic state of feeling anxious about our future.
Yeah. There's a way that I really like to conceptualize this. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to show everybody. So this is a picture. Let me find my screen here. Can everybody see my picture of a window? Right? Everybody see this? Y'all, I'm so proud I drew that. That is the extent of my artistic abilities right there. This is called, there's a couple of names for it. So this is called the window of tolerance. Some people call it the window of flexibility. But if you notice, it's a sunny, happy picture. It's a kind of a pleasant picture. This is this metaphor of a window is something that Dr. Dan Siegel came up with several years ago, just to kind of show how people handle stress. The window represents kind of our optimal space, that optimal zone where we function in life. And this is kind of your happy place or your safe place, or where you feel most able to function and manage stress and emotions. It doesn't mean you don't ever feel stress or strong emotion, but when you do, you're able to tolerate those things, and actually you're able to respond to stress in a flexible kind of way. And this is where stress and pressure don't bother us too much. We can still manage to do our daily activities. We still interact with people. We still are connected. We're in our window. But what happens when the stress is too much, when we get pushed out of our window? right? So if you, and this happens, really, it happens all day, every day, because we're all coming up against really stressful things. It could be a failing grade. It could be, some negative interaction with your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. And the next thing we know, we're out of the window. But what does that mean? It's like we sense a danger or threat, like Phil mentioned, your brain gets the sense of danger, and then we have a way that we react to it and respond. And you might have heard fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's pretty common way that our brain responds to danger. The thing is, we don't need to respond to danger generally. Now, the way our ancestors did years ago when they were cavemen and they were having to look out for predators everywhere and they had to be on high alert. We don't really need that kind of over response anymore, but sometimes our brain gets stuck in a very high alert, hyper vigilant place, and that's hyper arousal. So that's going up out of your window. Okay. And so that might look like anxiety. And Phil, I'm going to ask you to speak a little bit more about this, but then there's hypoarousal, and that looks a lot more like a shutdown. That's kind of reminds me, like you were saying, Phil, about, I'll stop sharing here, but you were talking about just the feeling of like helplessness. There's nothing I can do. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, as an example, you start the beginning of your school year. Maybe you get the list of assignments from the professor and you meet with the teacher. It's a subject that you wanted to learn. You're excited to learn this. This is the next class on the way to becoming, I don't know, I saw some people were in medical fields or architecture, but you're moving towards your goal. And so you feel excited, you're happy to be there. You look around the classroom and maybe you see a friend and you're feeling good. You talk, maybe you go get coffee afterwards and you talk about how you're going to approach the schoolwork. But then as the semester unfolds, you start to feel the pressure of the assignments. They're coming. There's writings, there's readings. You're struggling to keep up with the work plus manage the rest of your life. And maybe you're hearing about a fellow student who had to drop out because they're not doing so well, and you start to feel tense, like that could happen to me. And then all of a sudden, the teacher at the next lecture speaks up and says, by the way, that, paper that you have is just going to, it's due sooner or something that you missed. And all of a sudden, you're in a complete state of panic and anxiety and all these intrusive thoughts. You should have known better. Maybe there's judgmental thoughts. Maybe there's like, I need to do more. But I feel like I'm so overwhelmed with anxiety at this moment. I don't know where to start.
You just got thrown out of your window.
I got thrown out of my window.
Really?
And so I'm trying to get back to that place where I can feel okay again.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what I might do, like I might try some things to try to get back into the place of safe space in my window.
Well, I
Maybe
want to
I'll,
say, Phil,
Mhm.
even as you're saying that, like I'm looking at the chat and what people are, some of the things they've noted, and I think, oh, that somebody said they're not able to focus, they feel stuck. That's hypoarousal. That's being, you're kind of
Hyper arousal, no? You might be so
hyper.
hyper arousal that you're stuck. It
True.
doesn't matter. Yeah,
That's
right.
true. That's true. But either way, you're out of the window. Like you
Yeah.
now are not
hmm
in that place where you're coping very well.
So then I might decide, if I'm hypo, I better drink a lot of coffee
Mm-hmm. Get some caffeine.
and I need to stay up all night. And I'm really going to learn this. And then at some point it's so bad, like I think I better get a drink of something. I need some alcohol or something else to try to bring myself back down. I mean, it might not, or
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to friends, or I'm going to, you know what, maybe I'm just going to get in bed and
Mhm.
sleep and hope I wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm putting a pillow over my head and I'll just hope it's be better. That is, we're trying always to find a way to be in the window, as you describe,
Mhm.
but anxiety and depression can be pulling us out of the window with thoughts and feelings and sensations in our bodies that are telling
Well,
us, no, the danger is still there.
It's still there, but here's my question, Phil, is, and we're going to do a little exercise in just a minute to help people get a picture of their best window. It'd be like your peaceful place, and we'll do that together in just a second. But I do want to ask this, when it comes to this window, is the window always the same size?
No.
And what can make the window bigger or smaller, or what affects and impacts the size of your window?
So think about this. If you are in break time and there's nothing really going on and you're happy and you're with friends, you probably could tolerate a new stressor showing up. But in the last week of school, before all of your final exams, that window probably has shrunk down. It's harder to stay in that space. So there are external reasons why your window might shrink or grow depending on the time of year. But there also might be history reasons, right? I might have had a lot of bad experiences before I came to school. Or maybe I was doing really fine. And then I got into a taxi, and the taxi driver was rude to me, yelled at me, was mean, was trying to hurt me. And now I can't seem to shake it. And I'm back to feeling like any little thing is sending me out of my window of tolerance or my sense of safety.
So this could be true of even trauma or terrible things that maybe even happened to you many years ago in your childhood or growing up, anything, even before you got into the stressful situation of university, your window could be pretty small, I guess, right?
Yes.
Because you could easily get triggered into these hypervigilant states or that hypoarousal where you just want to shut down. And
So
it has a lot to do with your kind of your history of trauma, stress in your life.
Yes, that is true. And yet you can always begin to adjust and grow that window of tolerance. And you can do that by first knowing some of the things that help you get back into that space so that you are not as overwhelmed by the fact that you felt some anxiety and depression. So we'll talk about that soon, though.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say that our brain sort of can create these pathways of going. And so if my brain's response is automatically to become very alert or very, very anxious or fearful or whatever, it takes time and it takes practice. And we're going to show everybody, right, some skills and things they can practice to sort of help them stay back in the window. And over time, the window grows, gets more flexible. So, well, why don't we do this exercise right now, kind of identifying our own peaceful place. So,
and before you start that, I want you to do that, but I just want to say to you, even for many people, talking about anxiety and depression can make them feel some of the sensations, even as they're in an environment like Zoom here. So, Stacey, with that in mind, as you do this, let's see if we can find that space.
You know what? Before we find that space, would it be a good idea to do a breathing, maybe a little breathing? Would you lead us in a breathing exercise first, and then we'll do the other?
This one is so simple.
I'm just going to say, like, for the breathing exercise, if anybody has some reticence about that, remember that part of what happens just physiologically in your body when you are stressed is oxygen depletion. And your cells need oxygen. Our brain needs oxygen. And so breathing exercises, it's not some strange woohoo spiritual thing. It's really very practical, bringing oxygen back into your body. And you're going to notice how much more engaged you feel and focused after you do this exercise that Phil's going to lead us in right now.
I feel a little nervous saying this around so many medical people here. So remember, I don't have your expertise in medicine. I'm a psychologist, but every time you breathe, you are breathing in, and you have oxygen and you have release of carbon dioxide, right? And so this is a biochemical activity that leads to some different emotions, right? So here's what I would like you to do. If you feel comfortable, place one hand on your upper chest and the other hand on your belly or your abdomen. Just take a minute. I'm not focusing on your breathing quite yet, but just notice the warmth that you might be feeling with your hand on your own chest. Maybe for many of you that feels kind or compassionate or caring. Okay, now with that, take a deep breath in through your nose, and then you let it out through your mouth. As you do that, and you just go back to normal breathing, and you notice your abdomen expanding and contracting as you breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And when you out through your mouth, you can kind of sigh it out. Not everybody has a positive response to breathing exercises. Others will use some other ones in a moment to show you if you didn't. But it can be a way of just remembering, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm breathing.
I even like this, what you just did, saying, if you could even imagine your hands holding kindness, just being full of kindness to yourself. And as you breathe, just placing that on your chest and feeling that kindness come into you. How was that? Anybody want to share? How does that feel? You can put something in the chat box, how that is for you. We're going to go, okay, Yasin, go ahead and unmute, honey. There you go.
Hi, yeah, I am
Hi.
Yasin. Yeah,
Hello.
for me, it's not the first time I do this exercise
Good.
because I was facing depression, yeah,
Mhm.
and I was facing alone because
Mhm.
I born in a broken family, and my parents didn't had education, so. They are like so far for science system or something like that. But I used to read some philosophy and something about psychology, and
Mhm.
I was reading to Jordan Peterson, uh, and I was seeing sometimes some videos and uh, uh, I noticed that when I have like high depression or when I was facing the anger, yeah, the most
Mhm.
of the time I was facing the anger. So I figured out that breathing is something important.
Good.
So I do that thing and it's helped me a lot. But it's the first time that I experienced to put my hand on my heart. So now
Mhm.
I feel that I feel the state of my emotion because I was also not understanding what the feeling that I have. So when I was depressed, I don't know how to express to people my
Yeah,
feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, dear. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a question I think maybe other people are asking that came to me personally, and I want to throw this out. But Phil, is it possible to stay stuck in hypervigilance for so long because you've had that experience for so long that you're sort of stuck in it as a default?
Mhm.
How do you go back to living in that window, that nice window of tolerance, if you've been in that so long?
Right. It can be. Exactly. Think about this right now as if there is an alarm. Maybe you live someplace where there is a smoke alarm or some other alarm going off. Beep, 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 beep. It's telling you something, right? It's telling you should danger, danger, danger. And it's hard to figure out how to turn that alarm off. right? And turning off the alarm could actually feel scary, because what if there is a danger that I should pay attention to, right? So there's this thing that can make it very difficult to detach from the stress. So it's little by little. I want you to remember, if there's the only thing you remember, little by little. There's no magic eraser that just stops that sound or stops the pain. What are small things that help me feel a little bit better? And I need to build on them. If you want to ask me how you build a 2-story house, some of you are architects. I don't know. I'm not that, but I know you start with a foundation. That means I have to put small stones or big stones, one on the other, over and over, to get enough of a base. And so what that looks like for you, I don't know. But if you have a friend, and this is what we're kind of jumping ahead for a moment, but if you have a friend who can help me, what are some things that help me feel just a little bit better? Maybe it's going out on a Friday night when you don't have a Zoom and getting some fries together with a friend and a Coke, and eating and having a drink, and maybe watching a funny YouTube, or maybe it is using some sort of scent that you would put on your wrists and you'd smell it and it's a calming scent. None of those things by themselves are going to solve anything, but they are little building stones for a new way of being.
We do often talk about this kind of regulation that this question is asking about. Like, how do you get regulated when your system has been so dysregulated for so long? And like what Phil's talking about is these little steps. And one of the things that we encourage people to do, because it really does calm your system, it's using your senses. So it's doing things like the breathing exercises, but then using your senses, your sense of like smell. Phil mentioned some nice scent, a scent that you smell. Looking around, finding colorful things around you, noticing what you're hearing. It all requires you to be very present in the moment. We'll talk more about this kind of mindfulness too, but it's step by step, little by little by little, as Phil said. What helps me to feel 10% better? I always like it, Phil, when you say that. What helps 10%? Because a lot of times I think we set the bar so high, like I've got to get rid of this. I've got to be all good, just like, my friend over there. And we compare ourselves to other people. We have a very black and white way of thinking about this, but that little by little by little, piece by piece by piece. And those of you in Zambia, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Comandondo or Comandende, it's like the little by little. I think all of you maybe in your culture, we all have that little step by step by step, right? So here's another exercise. Let's do together. This is what I call our peaceful place, or I call it peaceful place or happy place. And it's a way to practice being back in that window. And keep in mind, your window of tolerance is a place where you feel like you're coping and you're able to kind of have more of an optimal functioning in everyday life. I want to challenge you for just a minute to get in a comfortable place. Okay, so this is an exercise we're going to do. And if you feel safe enough to close your eyes, you can. You don't have to, but if you feel safe and you can. And I want you to imagine a scene, and it can be a real memory that you have of a place you've been, or a time that you were in, or just one that you create in your mind. Okay, so get quiet with this. And I want you to think of that time or place where you were experiencing real peace, joy, contentment, happiness, and just let yourself be still for just a minute as you remember or imagine this scene. Recall how you felt in that place, in that moment. What did it look like? What was around you? Were you outdoors, indoors? Who was with you, if anyone was? Or in this memory or this peaceful place you're creating? What could you see? What do you hear or feel? And I want you to just hold that special memory or image for just a moment in your mind, okay? And now let yourself feel the moment of the happiness or joy and peace of it. And I want you to give it a name or a title. Okay, and it doesn't need to be anything anyone else understands, as long as you understand. And it's a name or a title that if I said it to you, immediately you would recall this picture in your mind. Okay, so now you can open your eyes. And if you feel like sharing the title of your picture, of your happy place, your peaceful place, you can put that in the chat. It might be something really simple like my birthday party in 2022, or my trip to the ocean, or whatever it is, but just some title if you want to share that in the chat box. And you don't have to, no one else has to know what it means.
People are putting theirs in there. I'll tell you mine. I chose one. Some of you who are studying in Marrakesh, I was thinking about a scene when we were there some time ago, watching the sunset and the mountains in the background, and how it went from a bright color to a darker color and just fading into the night, and the lights are coming on. And so for me, you don't have to put all that, but for me, it's the fading sunset on a warm night.
I'll tell you how I use this for myself and also my clients. So I will sometimes do this with my clients, and they'll give me a title or something, and I remind them of the title. So maybe we're in a session and it's really stressful, or they might even share it with a friend and the friend texts it to them. So it's when you remember the title of this, after this experience, it will come back to you, and it'll just give you that little glimmer of that joy that you felt, or that peace, or that little bit of happiness. And it's just really calming to your mind and to your system. It's just a little way that you can kind of pull yourself back into that window for a moment. Okay, so I love the titles coming up here. Thank you so much for sharing. The Happy Lake, Malika's Flight, A Lovely Date at a Cafe, Me and My Mom. I love these. Mine is about dolphins. I love it. Thank you guys so much. So Phil, I want to say, as we're talking about anxiety and depression, I was just doing a little bit of research, like historical research about how mental health struggles have been handled by the medical world and the mental health world in the last few centuries. And what I noticed was, like, historically, a lot of the mainstream ideas over the years have been about, and kind of the approach has been to get rid of the problem, get rid of the anxious thoughts, get rid of the overwhelming or the bad feelings or whatever. And I notice a lot of my clients come in to the session and that's their goal is I just want to get rid of this anxiety. I want to get rid of this depression. What do you say about that?
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't want to get rid of it? How can I stop this? This is torturing me. It makes the most sense that you would want to completely eradicate, erase anxiety, anxious thoughts, intrusive thoughts, thoughts that tell you that you're doing a bad job, depressive thoughts, of course. And so sometimes our friends and family also, well, just stop feeling that way.
Mhm.
It's the opposite of the Nike commercial. Just stop it rather
Yeah,
than just
just
do
do
it.
it. Just stop it.
So
It's not
there's a
very
little,
helpful though,
and
right?
you know what? We know it doesn't work.
Yeah,
We know that doesn't work. So yet when we're stressed, we think maybe it will this time.
yeah.
So what's the often the way we do it is, again, we either just try to tell ourselves to stop it, or there's something wrong with us and we're always going to feel this way. Notice that all or nothing thinking that Stacey mentioned earlier, this if I have any of it, it means I'm a failure. We might do pray it away, trust God more. We might do work harder. Um, it's a sign that you're in the wrong field. So there's all sorts of ways that we have handled it. Maybe we've tried to handle it with a substance, right? You know what? Alcohol or marijuana or you name it, might be something that does it. And there's some sense, when we eat foods, we can feel happier. So there's some ways that might help us a little bit. But some of these efforts, and this is the question that I have for you to think about. Have you noticed if some of the efforts you have to handle your anxiety and depression end up making it worse in the long run, right? So if I drink enough alcohol in order not to feel, or I take some other substance not to feel, how do I feel the next morning when I wake back up again? I might actually feel worse, right? Um,
I'm
so,
curious. I'm
mhm.
curious what the students are noticing for themselves or others. Like, how do people try to handle anxiety and stress? You mentioned a few, alcohol, um, maybe work really hard. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd love to hear, what do people try to do to manage their anxiety or their depression? What are some of the things that they might do?
Sleep.
Sleep, yes, Nelson. Absolutely.
And I mean, sleep.
Go to the gym, work out. Yes, and actually, Paul, that's a great one to think about. In fact, we'll talk about that. That can actually be something that can be helpful. Eat a lot,
What?
eat sweet
Eat
foods,
sweet
sleep,
food.
watch movies.
That's
Yep.
me. Yep. Give me some chocolate, a really good taco, watch movies, binge watch some Netflix.
Stay alone. Yeah.
Mm.
Cut down on all of the stimulus, right?
Yeah.
Self-isolation. Yeah.
Crying at 5
Only at 5 a.m. Some of us have them at 5 p.m. too.
a.m.
Uh, dance it out.
Oh, dance it
Spend
out.
money. Yes.
I love the dance it out because there's a way to help regulate your nervous system right there,
Mhm.
actually.
Yes. An intimate conversation. Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody who sees me, knows me, can talk
Mhm.
to me, shows that they love me,
Yeah,
can make me
that can
feel a
help
whole lot
regulate.
better. Yeah.
Mhm. Spending money, that's one.
Hmm.
It gets a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. We really, it just, oh, somebody else says I love to sleep and sleep solves your anxiety. You know what? sometimes you just need a good night's sleep, right?
Mhm.
And Nelson's saying it might be controversial, but masturbation, I mean, let's say it.
Yeah.
Can
Sex
be a stress
sometimes
relief
is, you know,
too, right?
watching anime or a TV show.
Mm-hmm. You know what strikes me about these, Phil, that we're noticing is that anything could be, there are a lot of things that could be, depending on the motivation and the situation, it could be a thing that it is a stress relief. It's actually good and it's not taking you away from the things you value or want. It's actually a way that you take care of yourself, right?
Mhm.
So sleep is a good one. It maybe we just need a good night's sleep. Maybe our brain just needs to take a break. We need a nap. At the same time, what if you're sleeping a lot and it's
Mhm.
a way to avoid the situation or the
Same with
stress?
watching television or a show. Like I'm going to watch a show and that helps me distract and kind of regulate. But maybe I end up binge watching 8 seasons of a show and missing deadlines, right?
Right,
I will
right.
even say this about Sally, seeking validation from others. That's a good one. And yet, if I'm constantly going around and asking everybody if I'm okay, or to have them tell me I'm okay, I might actually not be finding the kinds of window of tolerance, safe and happy place that I'm really looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody mentioned privately on here about using marijuana as a way to like release stress, but then it became something that they felt like they had to hide, and maybe they were afraid of telling others or somehow afraid of being judged or whatever. So, something that could seem to help us initially or whatever, it can become something that it becomes problematic. We become ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
So one of the first things I want to tell you is that if you're thinking about either your anxiety, depression, or somebody else, and you start to have a conversation about that, what do you do to try to help? Let's not start right away with judging whether it's right or wrong. Let's start with actually naming it, describing it. Of course, some things are better than others. If I'm harming myself to try to handle my anxiety, this is not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. But if I'm so ashamed of it, I never tell you, then I'm never going to address the thing that's happening. So we start with stepping back and just observing what people do, what I might do to try to manage it, and then asking the question, well, when I take the long look, does it actually help me? Or could it be contributing to something that's making it worse?
so you're saying, instead of judging it, you're saying asking the question, is it effective or workable or
Yeah.
not? So it kind of takes the shame
Yeah, I had
away.
a client once who was struggling with a lot of depression, and the way he handled it was actually harming his body, cutting himself. And because he didn't tell me though for a very long time. He hid it. It was under his clothes. Nobody
Even
knew.
though you were his therapist.
Even
He
though
was
I was his
devastated.
therapist and he was talking about a lot of really important things.
Mhm.
He finally had the courage to tell me, which I was so glad he did. But he was afraid that I would be mad at him or angry with him. And that shame kept him from being able to deal with the thing like, hey, when I get really depressed, I hurt myself, and somehow that makes me feel better momentarily, and then I feel worse,
Mhm.
and I feel more disconnected, and I'm afraid that somebody will see it and think I'm even crazier than I feel.
Mhm.
And when he was able to name it, it gave him so much relief, like, oh, it's out there now.
Yeah.
We can I can talk about it. And we could say, you know what? Maybe it did help a little bit in a moment, but I wonder, could there be some other things that
Mhm.
have longer term help,
Some other ways.
which might start with actually a physician prescribed medication, right?
Mhm.
It might be a decision about using exercise or talking with a friend or something else to help him moderate his strong emotions.
So you mentioned like you mentioned, a person really getting to know themselves. And, we've said this before, it's like becoming a detective.
Mhm.
Or a student of your own body
Mhm.
and your own mind. So what if you were a student of yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you start paying attention to what's going on and what are some of the thoughts, feelings, and things, and how do they move you? Because we've got this brain that's like a bully brain. It can be a real bully and kind of boss us around, tell us what we need to do or not do. A lot of people struggle with rumination, or like thinking their mind is always going when they're anxious. They're always thinking. And how do we like slow that down? But the first step is noticing and naming it what it is.
Yeah.
Naming it what it is. Oh, there's that's happening again,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to show a little graphic here. Hold on just a second. Let me find it. Here we go. Okay, guys. Everybody see my little arrows? So what Phil and I are talking about here is this is a way to think about this. So in a situation, or maybe there's a situation that happens at school. Let's say you find out you're not doing so great in your classes, and you're really struggling to keep up, right? So that's the situation. The thought that comes to your mind, so right down here, the thought that comes to your mind is, uh, I'm terrible. I'm the worst student in the class. I can't do this. I'm going to fail. All the feelings that come along with it. You might feel just ashamed of yourself. You might get like a sick feeling in your stomach when you think about the test you didn't do well on. All these things are going on right here. And when you get that bad feeling, maybe your brain starts spinning about the next exam that you have coming up and how you haven't studied enough and I need to do more. But at the same time, I feel like taking a nap. I don't want to study. I feel like maybe so here's your choice, right? In that moment, you are going to act on those feelings, sensations. And this is what we call the choice point. Okay. It's where you're going to make a decision. And maybe your decision is, I think I'm going to binge watch Netflix for a few hours. And then I'm going to play some video games. Then I'm going to call my girlfriend. And by that time, it's pretty late and I'm exhausted and I just go to bed. Okay. So you made some choices and you got hooked by the bad feeling and you wanted to avoid the bad feeling. So you did some things to distract you from the bad feeling. You watched some Netflix, you played some games, you talked to your girlfriend. But in the end, when you did that, it took you away from some things you value. Let's say that it is important to you that you be a good student and like your family's counting on you to do well at this and you really like your studies and you want to succeed and blah blah blah. So, but you actually you made some moves that took you away from the things that you value over here. Okay. So let's put those right up there. How you want to show up in life is right here. Okay. And we call that kind of getting hooked. Let's stop sharing. So we get hooked by all those messages our brain is giving us, the shame, the guilt. And this could happen. You could apply this model to almost anything, right? It could be even addictions. It could be watching porn. It could be lots of things. We get hooked by a certain feeling, thought, situation happens, some trigger, we get hooked and it takes us in a direction that we don't really want to go. It doesn't really align with the life that we want to live and the things we value. So what do we do? What do we do, Phil, in that moment to get unhooked from that bully brain or whatever that's taking us where we don't want to go? How do we get unhooked so we can live in alignment with what we value?
Well, first, I think it's starting with recognizing that we may not have stopped believing the anxious thought or the depressing thought. So when an anxious thought comes into your head, right? When an anxious thought comes into your head, do you listen to it as fact, or do you recognize it's just a thought? I don't have to act on it, or I may choose to, right? So for instance, in that moment, part of the getting hooked on it is I did all the distractions. I did the distractions into food or sleep or other things, but I didn't stop believing the sense of failure and danger. And by the way, there's real dangers out there. We're not suggesting that every anxious thought is a wrong thought, because there are real dangers out in the world. But when we have anxiety, it's when we have a chronic sensation of danger that's overwhelming us, right? And so part of the first thing we do is taking a step back and naming the thought as a thought rather than engaging it as fact. It is a thought. Step back from it. The bully brain tells you, you better listen to this. This is the most important thing. And if you don't, danger's around the corner. There's a wild beast around the corner that's going to eat you.
Sometimes I even tell my patients to thank your brain. Go ahead and stop and thank your bully. Thank you. Thank you for the public service announcement, bully brain. Thank you for sharing this message.
But there's a recognition that it's a thought, and I can go ahead and I don't have to necessarily treat it as true or false. It's a thought.
That's it. It's just a
What
thought.
do I want to pivot to? So you see that other side, instead of going down the side of believing it and trying to resolve it or just forget about it.
Or arguing with your bully brain. You said this to
Mhm.
me the other day about someone that, like, what is that like? How do
Yeah.
we stay out of that? Because
What's
that would
wrong
be
with me?
really
Why are you
easy.
still thinking this way? You shouldn't be
Mhm.
thinking this way. Come on, man, just, and so now I'm in this debate with something
Yeah.
that isn't necessarily telling me the truth.
Mhm. So
Sometimes you have
don't
to.
debate it. So you're
Mhm.
saying, don't okay, thank you, bye, that's a thought. You're right here. And you're not trying to get rid of it,
No.
but you're also not trying to battle it or argue with it about whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Right. Now, in the midst of a big anxiety and depression, this is hard to do, but ahead of time, you may be able to say, what are some things that I want to try to do in that moment that makes it a little bit better? Like, I don't have to decide now if I'm going to stay in school. I just have to know what I'm going to do in the next 5 minutes. I don't have to know if I'm going to have a love life or if I'm going to be able to have something for next year. What's one thing I can do right now? I'm going to read this book as a part of this class. I'm going to go for a walk with a friend. I'm going to, I'm going to go and do this project with another friend because I know it's going to help me feel better and get my mind off of me.
I often will even encourage people, okay, give that part a name if you want to. Like we've been calling it the bully brain, the ruminator, whatever, the anxious part, whatever, give it a name. And that is just a part of you. It's not you. It's a part of you that gets turned on sometimes, gets triggered, starts going, and we can acknowledge that we're having that thought, we're having anxiety, or I'm feeling really depressed. We can acknowledge the feeling or the thought or the situation, and we can let that be, because we are not that feeling, we are not that part, but it's there. And so instead of trying to fight it and get rid of it, we sit with it. So it would be like, here's another thing you can do right now. If you are watching and you can do this, you can do it with me. So I want you to put your hands up right now in front of your face like this. Okay. Okay. Now, let's just imagine that your hands are your anxiety. And like Phil said, anxiety, depression, two parts of the same coin. They're your anxiety. They're right up in front of your face. Can you see me? No, you can't see me. You can't see Phil. You can't see these other beautiful faces out here. You can't see what's in front of you in life. You can't see any of the good things. You can't see me smile at you when your hands are right there. Now I want you to stretch your hands out like this in front of you, like that. So, okay. Now they're a little bit further, but look how, if you had to go around like this, trying to keep your hands out here, you can still see around your hands a bit. You can see a little bit of life, a little bit of other people, but still tough, right? Okay. What if you just lay your hands down in your lap? They're still attached to your body, right? They're not going anywhere. Here they are. Put your hands down. Now, can you see me? Can you see me smiling at you? And you can see Phil smiling at you and the other faces, and you can see what's out in front of you in life. And this is what it's like. This is just a metaphor for if this is the anxiety and things that you're struggling with, when they're right here, they're taking up all the space. We don't have to get rid of them. We still have our hands, right? We don't have to get rid of them. Can we just let them be? Just put them on your lap. Okay. We're not cutting our hands off, throwing them out in the garbage. It's still a part of us, but it's not the main thing. It's not taking up all the space. We're learning to live with this part to where, I don't know, I don't really even notice as much. So
here's a way this works practically, Stacey. So I had a long time ago, but I had a problem with anxiety myself. And in the moments where it was the worst, I couldn't think, I couldn't feel. It was like everything here, there was nothing existed. A friend of mine called me and I picked up the phone and he was telling me about things going on in his life, but it was really hard for me to hear anything. It was, yes, I was half hearing it. But my mind was still spinning around on what I needed to do. And yet at some point in the conversation, the conversation turned to something that was really interesting. And then I realized, when I hung up the phone, I realized I am feeling better. Nothing has changed in my life. How did I go from a 10 out of 10 in a bad way of being anxious to being maybe a 3 or a 4? I still had some anxiety. It was still around. My hands were I still have my hands, but they weren't right there. And that was a curious moment where I realized, there are things I can do to make the moment better. The what ifs, this crazy, scary what ifs that were raging in my head. There are things I can do to quiet them. So this is the question that I have for you all, and you might have for your friends. What makes the anxiety just a little bit less anxious, or that depression just a little bit less depressed? And we had some of those answers before. Somebody said going to the gym. So that might be on your list of 10 things to try. You know what? I need to get to the gym and work out a little bit, burn some calories, feel invigorated. And that will be one of my 10 things that I try to do.
So the real skill to develop is to be in the here and now and engage like you were with your friend. He called you and it sort of brought you right here, where anxiety and depression have a way of like throwing us into the what if of the future, or triggering this feeling of like danger and hopelessness and helplessness we get stuck in. And so instead of being in those places, if we can come back to the present moment and be fully engaged, and that doesn't mean we ignore it or distract ourselves or these kind of things. It means we admit it, we acknowledge it, we name it for what it is. I'm having this feeling. I'm having the thought that I might be a bad student. It's just a thought, right? I'm experiencing that. And I actually can be engaged in something right in this moment. Like Phil said, talking to a friend on the phone and really paying attention to what you're doing in the moment. I mean, it could even be going for a walk and just really noticing, instead of letting your mind start spinning on your walk so that you're thinking of all the things you should be doing and how you're failing in school or whatever. Instead, bring yourself right to that moment and notice the birds singing, the color of a tree, a car going by. Like, that's what we mean by being present, fully present in your life. And that's called mindfulness. And it's a skill that you build, but we know that it works and it helps people when they're struggling with depression. So it's about thinking differently.
And I'll leave you with this. I know we're going to take some questions here, but I want to leave you this one illustration. If I do go to the gym and always work out my right bicep, I'm going to have maybe it not huge because I'm not huge, but a bigger bicep. And if I never do this one, it'll be this little weak arm. The what if is something that we've often practiced, the anxious thought. If I put that weight down and start building slowly, I'm going to get a stronger being mindful and present.
Yeah. And as we finish, we said in the advertisement, we want to talk about self-care too. And we've tried to weave that in, but keep in mind that there are things that can exacerbate anxiety, like too much caffeine, not enough sleep, not enough exercise. So there's a lot of things you can be doing physically, nutritionally, to actually take care of yourself that will reduce. I mean, there's a lot of studies about exercise helping alleviate anxiety and depression, or at least increase your sense of well-being. So, all right, let's spend some time taking questions. So we're going to open this up for everybody. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or just unmute yourself and come on and ask. We've got a few more minutes and we want to leave space for that. And this is a big topic, and I know we haven't covered, there's probably a lot we could do more, and we are thinking of having a part 2 to this topic down the road. So Sally, go ahead with your question, dear.
All right. So for me, there's something that I call midnight thoughts. And this is where in the middle of the night, out of nowhere, your brain just gets really active. You start making scenarios that are non-existent. Sometimes you even get to cry or laugh. It really manifests in different ways. So how can what sort of advice can you give someone who has this frequent experiences, especially in the middle of the night, and being a student, that also gets to affect them negatively because they don't get to focus as they are studying? So what advice can you give?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you several things that you can do. Maybe one will work better for you or for someone. So the general suggestion is we should not lay awake fretting and thinking and overthinking in our beds for maybe more than 20 minutes at a time. So if after 20 minutes I haven't been able to sort of release those midnight thoughts, then maybe it's okay to get up and do something very mundane, something very boring. That don't get on your phone if you are going to get up or watch something. Go to your kitchen and clean the counter. If you can, it's not always possible. Read something rather boring. Pick up something that would be maybe not too stimulating. So that's if you have to get up. But if you are laying in bed and there those thoughts come to you, acknowledge them as thoughts. But knowing that they might happen to you, you might want to have a few different places that you want to try to intentionally put your brain in another location, like the happy place that Stacey mentioned, or maybe you are a person who likes to pray. So I'm going to pray for my friend John. You know what? John doesn't really have any troubles right now, but I really just want God to bless him. And so I'm going to pray that. Somebody else might have a little device that they use in their mind. So let's pick the word. I'll just for fun, I'll say the word the way we Americans say it, and then you all say it in your own head differently. But we say zebra or zebra. I'm going to pick an animal name like that, and for each letter of the name Zebra, I'm going to start naming other animals. So what other animal names begin with Z? I'm already stuck. I don't know any other ones, so maybe I should have picked another one. E. I'm going to pick animal names that begin with E. B. Animal names that begin with B. Bat, bear, butterfly. I picked a bad
You
topic.
keep picking the bad, the
Giraffe.
letters.
Yes, I'm going to make up things.
want
But you know what? By doing that, it forces you to try to think about something, and you have to follow a little.
It actually makes you pay attention to the here and now of what's
It
going on
does.
instead
And
of
you know
letting
what?
your brain get carried away.
It takes you off of the painful thing, which is more likely to let your body say, oh, yeah, that's right. We're going to go back to sleep because this is boring to think about animals.
Mhm. Yeah. You can also do a body scan. So just lay there quietly and just scan your body to relax different parts of your body. There's meditation apps you could turn on and use those, but I think these are good ideas. So let's see. Liana has a question, so we'll take hers. Liana, go ahead, dear.
Well, my question is for, like, what if you have someone, like a friend or someone close to you who is going through maybe some sort of anxiety or depression, like you can see from their behavior and how they describe whatever is going on in their lives. And you've tried to like tell them, like you notice what it is, but they don't really know what it is, or at least maybe they know, but they don't want to accept it. So like a person like that wouldn't really accept to get professional help, even if they have it, like it's easy for them to get it, but they wouldn't accept to get professional help so that they get the help they need. So how can you help such a person?
Well, one, I'll say you're already helping them because you're being their friend that is listening to them and is making herself available to them. And so that's one of the most helpful things you can do is be that non-judgmental, calming place where someone can come and say when they're feeling really sad or they're anxious, and you're not judging them or criticizing them. It is difficult because we want people to get better. So we sometimes want them to move at a different pace than they're moving. I know you've experienced that too, Phil.
Yeah. I was just thinking of an example. Let's say, Stacey, you were trying to help me be less anxious, and I wasn't really doing maybe some of the things that maybe you thought I should do. You might try to convince me, come on, Phil, you can go to the doctor. Come on, there's something. Yes, you could do that. And I would probably be less likely to do it just because if you try to push me, I'm going to push back. But you might actually, you might actually say, well, is there one thing you might try? Is there something we can do together? I noticed that you were feeling a little less anxious today, Phil. What helped you? So you're being curious about me and showing some interest and compassion, but you're not trying to drag me to something that I've said I won't do.
And I'm not necessarily trying to convince you
No,
of
but
of something.
You might ask me some questions like, what would happen if you tried? What would that feel like? Maybe that would feel bad, or maybe that would feel good. And it can be a very honest conversation. And that in itself may be planting little seeds that grow and help me later on.
Yeah. And it might be, I offer things like Phil's saying, like, well, it seemed like a walk helped you the other day. Can we go for a walk? Or what if I call and we do a check-in text, or instead of call, I text every day and we do a little check-in. You can even have sort of signals. So sometimes it is hard for people to say, I'm feeling anxious or depressed or whatever, for whatever reason. They might just feel stuck, or they might feel ashamed, whatever. What about emojis you can share with each other? And you and your friend can come up with emojis that mean different things. And your friend sends you the emoji that means they're sad or they're feeling depressed. And it gives you an opportunity to text them back something encouraging, or ask them, want to go for a walk? Want to go get some fries and a Coke? Like Phil said, just it's the little ways that we connect with people, and that helps them feel like they can talk about these problems. We create that safe space for them. We've got a couple of comments in the chat I appreciate.
You just
Somebody
mentioned that one that Harriet said, it's so easy to reach for when we're anxious or depressed, scrolling through, but that can really actually add. And we do see that social media, especially in younger teenagers, can add to their depression because everything is beautiful and perfect on Instagram. And everything on some of the other ones is doom and gloom, and that might not help us in the long run.
Dandiwe says, ask the question, when they're down, they feel a little bit like indifferent, or they don't want to be chatty and social, and their friends kind of want them to do that, and they feel like they have to perform for people. But how can they communicate to others? It is a normal, healthy, and this could be something you think about ahead of time. How do I want, this happens to me sometimes. What is a succinct way that I can communicate this to my friends? It might be something as simple as, I'm under a lot of stress this week, so you might notice that I spend a little more time by myself, or I'm a little more quiet. Just want you to know I'm not upset. I mean, even if you just text that to your friends, if you just really don't want to talk, it's a statement that you come up with ahead of time. You let them know it's not you. It's just a way I react to stress.
And I think that's really good. And I think, the evaluation for yourself is, how much time do I end up in this indifferent space? If I'm there most of the time, then we might have some questions about, is there something that I want to do to be less there? But you're right. I like that, Stacey, is like, hey, I'm quiet, but I still want to be present.
Yeah. And I don't want to lose my friends. I want them to.
I know our time is up, but we have one more person with a hand up. Do we want to take that last question?
Yeah, we can take that. And we understand if people need to leave, it's okay. We'll send the recording out within the next day or two. So, Nazyanya, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay. My question is almost the same as, I think, Sally's question. She talked about having midnight thoughts, but for me, it's I feel like I have immediate anxiety the moment I wake up. It's like I struggle with wanting to have my day organized, because it's like in the past I would end up just maybe half the day I would end up sleeping, and I don't really get anything done, like studying or just being productive. So it's like I always wake up with this anxious mind telling me I have to do something, I have to do this, I have to, and it's almost hard to stop, because sometimes if the thoughts get too much, I just end up going to sleep again instead of starting my day. Yeah.
There's early morning thoughts, negative thoughts, the instant I wake up. This is not uncommon. So thank you for bringing it up, because I know other people will be experiencing it as well. Stacey, do you have a thought about what somebody might do when they notice a pattern of that first negative thought kind of overwhelming them and just making them feel like it's a failure before they even started?
Well, it's like we mentioned earlier, becoming a student of yourself. So, Noziana, so you notice, and now you're going to notice right away, because we've been talking about this. Aha, there it is. There's my bully brain. It's starting to send me some doom and gloom messages, or some things I'm failing at, or I need to do. Just, can I grab that right there? Can I name it? Can I notice? Ha. It's before you get hooked. Because once you get hooked, it's like a ball rolling downhill,
Yeah, you might be, maybe you have a little stand next to your bed where you have a light or something, or maybe you have, a place just out of reach, and you can almost imagine, I'm going to imagine those thoughts going over there to that table. They're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to not engage them in conversation, because the moment I engage them in conversation, whether I'm trying to defeat them, I'm probably going to lose to them, because they're really insistent thoughts and they're really strong. They believe you've already ruined it. You didn't get up soon enough. You should have done more yesterday. And say, oh, there it is. Let's see if I can put those thoughts over there. And now what's one thing I can do? Maybe it will be that I'll sit up on my bed for a moment and put my hands here and take a few of those breaths. Or I'll open my eyes and start naming a few things around me that I can see. I can see the ceiling. I can see the light. I can see the color of the wall.
Some people start with like a gratefulness excerpt, like,
Mhm.
and they right away, it becomes like their habit every morning. Deep breath, and I'm going to name 3 things I'm thankful for today. Brings you right back to the here and now. And like Phil says, you're looking around, you're noticing your environment. So unhook from that bully brain, but it's still there. The messages are, but you're focused in on something else.
I know this is easier said than done, but it's a practice. Think about any other practice that you've learned. When you first started, you probably felt awkward and it didn't fit. And then you got better at it.
Yes.
So.
That's exactly right. Some other people saying they can really relate to that struggle, those racing thoughts in the morning, or like late at night, or that wake you up and then you can't sleep, and then you worry because you can't sleep, and it all becomes this spinning thing. But like Phil said, deep breath, and it's just bringing yourself to the moment and practicing these things little by little. And it's a muscle that you work, and you get stronger and stronger. It becomes more natural to do it. So I have put some things in the chat box for all of you. I hope you saw that. You can scroll up, I think. There's some resources on there that you can look up. I've also shared with you my WhatsApp number. So you are welcome to reach out in an email. And if you want to contact us, you're welcome to contact us with your questions. One of the things that CCI offers besides webinars is we do consultations, and we do crisis counseling, and work with students and coaching for students in crisis. And so if you have questions, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk with you or schedule a meeting with you to see what you need. And hopefully we will get there at some point and do an in-person training with you. But in the meantime, we'll be having these webinars. Thank you for coming. You'll get the recording for this, and please share it widely with anyone you like. And if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in the next few months, please send to us and we'll consider that. But again, thank you for your time. It's been good to be with you.